All right, we're going to get into a little Bitcoin analysis. See how that's doing. Looks like it's doing a little retracement. If you followed the video that we did, the live trade video on Thursday at about 5 a.m. if you were up that early, or 8 a.m. Eastern, this is what we were predicting. It looked like it actually, for all of what's going on here, it looks like it actually held up pretty well. Predicted this about right here. It went up close to where we were, came back down to something that was very close to this point. And then we thought it was going to sometime around here go back up to this level, but we didn't think it was going to hold as long as it did. Yeah, but still, I mean, whether you longed or shorted within this, you would have been profitable. We longed here, closed it here, waited till here, we bought the bounce here, waited throughout the day, sold it there, missed this, shorted it here. So now we thought it's going to be moving along sideways like it is. Currently, I think just doing it right now with my eyes placed on it, it is going to be long if I had to make a choice. Check out the distance between here to here. About 200, not bad. The weekend moves tight and fast. Usually it doesn't keep its positions for too long. And yeah, it'll, so if it goes up to about, I would long it. From face value, we're going to get into a little bit more TA to see if that is supported by anything else. But yeah, 1 second, we'll get right into that.
California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt when the world fell at our feet.
All right. Yo, freeing up a little bit more space. Bitcoin looks good right now. I like it. I like where it fell, and I like that it could go up to here. And so for me, I would say I would do something along the lines of up to 10x. You might be able to dabble with a 15x if you want, or 20 if you're willing to sleep with something like that, or be able to watch the computer for a longer period of time. But anything from 5 to 10, good. 15, if you have the eyes to put on it.
So typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. I hope that you will. If you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happens, it's no secret that the both of us are running out of time.
do your thing.
Live trading session with the LPP team, and one of the questions that was kind of being brought up is, why is the market selling off if what was reported today with big banks actually better than expected? What's going on, guys? It's Ricky here, and I'm here to answer that question. So I really hope that you learned something new, and if you do, please consider dropping a thumbs up and subscribing if you feel like we earned it. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen so you guys can see exactly what it is that I'm looking at. So NASDAQ market is slightly in the red. It's not a very red day. It's not a very green day, but overall slightly in the red. It's already beginning to form this overall reversal. And why, right? Why is it in the red if JP Morgan stock, right, is up 7.5% on the day? And JP Morgan, out of the main three, I mean, all of them. Citigroup is also one that reported earnings today. It's up 3.3%, and it was up closer to 4% during that pre-market session. We also had Wells Fargo, which is WFC, also reported earnings today, slightly in the green. So all of these companies reported earnings, and I want to use JP Morgan as an example. Came in beating expectations with its earnings per share and its revenue. So this kind of does support the case that what Jerome Powell has been saying from the head of the Federal Reserve, what he's been saying about the banks, that it looks like banks are sound and resilient. So then why is the market selling out? Now, the only way that I can justify this sell-off is looking through the eye from the Federal Reserve. So what does this mean for the Federal Reserve that banks are doing well? Well, the big concern on why we were thinking of pausing interest rate hikes, right? So the Federal Reserve raises interest rates. But one of the reasons that we were thinking of pausing that is because, well, what if we continue to raise rates and then more banks, larger banks, begin to fail, right? That was the concern that the Federal Reserve had. Now this gives us an inside look that we're not really even close to that. So the reason we believe, right, so I'm talking to the LPP team, the reason that we believe that the market is actually selling off a little bit, it's that it's factoring in that on the next interest rate hike, which is in early May, right, May 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, the Federal Reserve could justify another interest rate hike because they know that the banks are not in the, brinks of potentially failing as well, like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley seems to be a one-off exception. It being a very unique bank in what it really focused on and how overly leveraged it was, and then a poor investment in the bond market. But as of right now, why was the market selling off a little bit? I could only justify it with what was announced today, what was reported. It shows that we have a strong banking system, at least from the main three, and JP Morgan's performance itself speaks for itself. But how this can justify the Federal Reserve can continue its fight against inflation without the fear of more banks failing. Because if you guys remember, the original concern when these banks began to fail was that the Federal Reserve needed to pause interest rate hikes because other banks could fail. And right when that began to get factored into the market began to skyrocket. Why? Well, because if the Fed begins to pivot, then that means that they actually begin to create rate cuts, right? Now it means that the Federal Reserve can potentially stay the course, continue its fight with inflation, get that under control without the fear of putting larger banks in some hot water. And the other thing that was reported today was also retail sales. This was all during that pre-market session, and we can see that retail sales came in 1% lower than the previous month, and then the expectation was negative 0.4%. We came in at negative 1%, so a little bit worse than expected. And then retail X auto came in at negative 0.8 versus the expectation of negative 0.4. So when these reports were actually released, again, this was all 1 hour before the market opened, the market did react in a negative way, as you could imagine, right? So I'm still having a difficult time, like many of you guys, having a better understanding of, are we going back to how things were where bad news is good news, or is now bad news, right? And it's still too early to tell because a lot of these different reports mean different things. But remember, a lot of people are making assumptions based off of what they think the Federal Reserve will do. There's nothing wrong with having a plan in place, but remember, our job is not to predict the future. Our job is to just simply prepare for it. So I just wanted to make sure that you are reminded that No one knows exactly what the Federal Reserve will do, but what it is that they do announce when they do it will affect the market and will get factored in right away. So really
So
excited
this
to
is
follow
what
up on what
we're
you guys
feeling
have
that
better
Bitcoin
understanding
could
in
possibly do.
why, if
I
big
think it
banks
goes up
reported positive
about
earnings, why is the market
anything
slightly
from
under
150 to
what you guys
300
get, and
points,
open
probably
to
at a
a
maximum.
conversation down in the comment section. So very excited to follow up. I hope
Tonight.
that we're in your
I mean,
thumbs
that's
up on this video.
3.5
Don't forget to
hours.
subscribe. And again, friendly reminder,
Sometime
we do
more
trade
so
live
within
every
the
single
next,
morning
I'm going to move
on the
that
LPP
over.
team.
Probably
It's
sometime more
10 p.m.
so
live
within the
put
next
access. And if you're
6
struggling to
hours.
figure
I
out
feel
how
it
to
usually
unlock,
happens
I
early
trade
morning
every
or
single day. So
nighttime
ask
with
yourself
the
a
New
simple
York
question.
schedule.
Would it be of value to you as a complete
Then
newbie
I
to be
feel
able to
that
have access to my morning
I'm
live
just going to
sessions
come
where
down
you
and
get to see my entries,
come down,
you get to
possibly
see
come
my
down even
exits, and
further
most
to
importantly,
here,
you get to
come back up,
understand and
wallow
hear
on
my
this
thought
line,
process
come back
behind
up,
every single
and then
trade I take
back
during
up
these
to
live
around here
sessions.
during
Again,
Saturday.
that's that second link in the
Keeps its moves
description down
tight,
below
sharp,
if you
and
want to
usually
learn
goes
more
back to a
about
midline on the
process.
weekend. So figure out where
Appreciate
you
your
think
time.
that midline is. I
Let's
think it's
make
right
sure
about
that we
here.
on the green now. Take it easy, team.
Too. So no matter what, if you're above or below that line, you should get a chance to get in, out, or into profit on that trade.